Hey, Warren.
Jeffries.
Morning, Warren.
Good morning, everyone.
Livestream is
Okay,
commenced.
so I think we have a quorum. Can someone verify that we have a quorum?
Yes, with Jim joining, you'll have quorum. As soon as we can verify Jim is there, his camera's.
And there's Brenda as well.
Yeah.
Great. Hi, good morning, Brenda.
Good morning.
Okay, so good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Board of Directors meeting of the Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation. Today is Thursday, October the 26th. My name is Fareed Amin, and I have the privilege of being the chair of this committee. I would like once again to welcome all of our directors and to welcome those of you who are joining us online. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank staff once again for putting together the agenda and all of the related materials, and also to thank our staff for the incredible work they do day in and day out in serving our seniors. I will proceed with the land acknowledgement. Toronto Seniors Housing acknowledges that we are on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaties, signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. I'll now proceed with the ancestral acknowledgement. Toronto Seniors Housing acknowledges all treaty peoples, including those who came here as settlers, as migrants, either in this generation or in generations past, and those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly those brought to these lands as a result of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery. We pay tribute to those ancestors of African origin and descent. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Hearing none, may I have someone move the following motion? Be it resolved that the public meeting agenda as presented to the board is approved.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Thanks very much, Warren. Can I have a seconder?
Brenda.
Thanks, Brenda. That is all in favor? Any opposed? That is approved. We'll now move on to item number 4, which is a declaration of conflict of interest. I will ask the formal question. Is there any conflict of interest? Hearing none, we'll proceed on that basis. If something arises during the course of the meeting, please identify that conflict and we'll deal with it at that time. Okay, item number 5, the minutes were circulated as part of the agenda. Are there any amendments to the minutes? Hearing none, may I have someone to move the following? Be it resolved that the public session board minutes of August 3rd, 2023 is approved.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. May I have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much. All in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Okay, matters arising from the minutes. Any action items? I think there is any. We'll now proceed with item number 8, which is a report from the Quality and Tenant Engagement Committee. But before I ask Linda to present her report, I'll invite Bill to offer his deputation. Bill, you have 5 minutes. Do we have Bill on the line?
I'm not sure if we have Bill Fareed. If you can hang with us, I think we're a couple of minutes earlier than I think Dave advised Bill.
Pardon me,
All
Mr.
right, so
Chair.
we'll meet.
Can we go
Yes,
back
go ahead.
to item number 6 to approve the closed session minutes, please?
6.
And number 6. Okay. All righty. So item number 6, which is the closed session board minutes. Are there any amendments to that minute? Okay, hearing none. May I have a motion to resolve that the closed session board meeting minutes of August the 3rd, 2023 be approved?
So move, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, seconded by Maureen. All in favor? Any opposed? That is approved. Okay, so we'll go back to item number 8. Thanks, Monique. Has Bill joined us yet?
Just checking for Reed. My understanding is we're trying to get Bill right now.
Okay.
Can I ask a question while we're waiting?
Sure, Maureen, go ahead.
Thanks, Fareed. In the minutes, it mentions a few times, it says he or she then answered questions from the board. I'm wondering if it's possible to have just a little bit more detail in those minutes as to what the questions from the board were, because it may be beneficial in the future when looking at follow-up.
Okay, thanks. We'll try and strike the right balance between brevity and also giving enough information to ensure there's follow-up. Thanks, Maureen.
Thanks, Fareed.
Read through that just to advise they're still working to get Bill.
Should we move to Linda's report, or do you want to wait until, or do you want to proceed with your report, Grant, and then we can come back to Bill and then Linda?
We may have Bill. I just think I heard something there. Do we have Bill on the line now?
We're just calling him.
Fareed, it seems like we're having a little bit of challenge getting Bill right now. Maybe you want to proceed, and then as soon as we can get Bill, maybe after Linda, but before I do mine.
Yeah, mine is a summary of the meeting, so I'm happy to do that if you'd like, Fareed.
Okay, yeah, why don't you proceed, Linda?
Okay, great. And I believe Bill was at our meeting, and I think he will only add commentary as we go. But good morning, everyone. Linda Jackson. I'm the chair of the Quality Tenant Engagement Committee of the board. And I'm pleased to just give a bit of an update on our last meeting, which occurred on September 13th. It feels like months ago now. Somehow or other, a lot happens in September and October. So I'm going to give a bit of a summary, and then I believe Grant is going to give a little bit more detail. And I think maybe I'm getting a bit of background noise. We might have to mute some people.
Yeah, so maybe if you can keep your speaker on mute while the presentation is being made. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. So we welcomed new faces to our quality meeting. I think, Jill, it was one of your first board meetings, and it was terrific to have Jill Bada, our interim CEO, join us. We also had officially a new committee member, Maureen, join us, and board member Amber Morley, and they all added greatly to our meeting. Our meeting covered a lot of informational items, but they were quite substantive. Of note, I did want to advise that we're currently looking at the right frequency of reporting from OACH and the Commissioner of Housing. We did not have a report at that meeting, and we're looking at a new cadence of reporting because the situations the reports don't change a lot over time. Are you getting a lot of feedback from?
Yes.
I am. Thank you. Yeah, so if I can ask directors and staff to please put yourself on mute while the presenter is speaking. Thank you.
Thank you. And I apologize for that feedback for anyone who's listening from the public. We also had, so we will be coming back to the board in terms of the right frequency of reporting from OACH. We also had some specific report highlights. As the board will realize from looking at your package, our team have been working very hard at actually refining our operations dashboard. And this is, I think our committee is finding this a very helpful vehicle to keep track of our key performance indicators. We were very pleased to see things like very clearly articulated that our vacancy rate at the end of July was 1.94%, which is below the 2% target. And this is a significant, achievement that our committee was pleased to see. We also focused on the recommendation and the work happening on pest management, and talked about the partnerships that are happening to help. It's one thing actually providing pest treatment. It's another thing helping our tenants to be prepared for that. And we're really pleased that some partnering is happening with public health, and that our team is actually making sure that our tenants are supported in that very challenging process. Our staff have also been working to complete the annual unit inspections. That's something that happens on a yearly basis, obviously. And this has resulted in a substantial increase in the number of services both maintenance and admin are dealing with as actually they go through the unit inspections. Brad also provided an update on our tenant town halls, and I believe actually Bill may have some comments about this part of our report. We're very pleased to see the level of engagement that is happening at the local level. 3 tenant town hall style meetings in 3 communities were piloted in the early summer. They informed the future sessions, and at the QTE, Brad noted that there were 41 sessions scheduled. So I think this board had said that we want to make sure that we continue to be reaching tenants. Tom started this when he came on, and the message was, don't just do this once, keep connecting with us. And this may be the best format for us having that engagement. We don't see, the virtual platform is not the best to actually connect at our committee levels and board levels. So we want to be out in the community. And so they're, hoping that we're going to be getting more and more feedback from the tenants in terms of how this is working. Finally, Grant provided a Q2 update on our interim strategic direction and roadmap tracker. Again, looking at our key performance indicators, and highlights were provided. Our committee is the committee that actually is hopefully spending the time to identify what's on track with our strategic plan, where we need to actually address any concerns and bring that back to the board. So that also happened. As you can see, you would all probably benefit from coming to these meetings. Finally, Arlene provided an update. Arlene Howell, our Director of Engagement, provided actually Grant also provided an update on our finance, but I think that is reported in a number of different forums as well. Arlene presented, our Director of Engagement, Partnership and Communications, on our communications process. Again, another item that has been critically important to our tenants in terms of how are we getting information out. The team at TSHC is trying very hard to actually continue to communicate in many different forums, staff bulletins, an annual report, 14 videos for both tenants and staff. And there was, and through this, we're also hearing feedback from the board and from the tenants about the importance of actually doing this in multiple languages. They coordinated 65 interpreters to support the listening tour and posted over 171 website documents during this period. Finally, it might be interesting to the board to know that we were asked by Councillor Michael Thompson if we would provide a forum to provide some feedback to some work that some researchers have been doing from his office in the Scarborough area about approaches to support seniors. And while the report was really quite general in nature and actually was focused well beyond the seniors that we are particularly focused on, most of the seniors that live in our buildings are living are low income and face a lot of barriers. That this was actually a broad scan of all services for seniors. I think we provided some good recommendations, and it was helpful to hear what's happening in one area. So I think that's it from my report. And maybe before I pass it over, I think Grant, you're going to be picking up from me. Maybe we can see if Bill's on the line.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks a lot, Linda, and never a dull moment at quality and tenant engagement. Lots of work to do, and then thanks for the work you and your committee does, especially kind of getting into some of the weeds and the details to help us navigate some of the complexities around the strategic plan and tenant engagement. So thanks again. I'm going to see if Bill is on the line before I invite Grant to present the interim strategic directions. Hi, Bill. Can someone let me know if Bill is on the line, please?
So I've been advised that Bill is on the line. I'm not sure if there's some issue at this stage with. Oh, there we go. I think there he is.
Hi, Bill. Good morning. Welcome. I'll ask you to proceed with your delegation, with your deputation. Sorry, you've got 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Ms. Bada, and directors of the board. Thank you for this opportunity to speak this morning. It's been a long road reaching this point of integrating the integrated service model into this new Toronto seniors housing. And it's the result of a lot of hard work by staff, management, and the diligent effort of Mr. Coffey. And I sent some documents yesterday, and I'm hopeful that folks have had a chance to kind of look at them because they're going to help with what I want to speak about this morning, and that is the tenant engagement model. When you look at the documents, one of the documents that was about the the scope. And in that document, if you look through it, you will not see the word agency or stakeholder anywhere. And so when the BMG presented their model through their consultations, what we saw was the graphs that you see from the 7-4 tenant engagement system. There's a current tenant engagement, which has 3 circles around a tenant engagement model. And what was proposed is not so much about tenants engaging or having a voice. It's more about living healthy lives in vibrant communities. And in that, there are 8 voices or 8 perspectives. And so this model, when we questioned this model and said this is not tenant engagement, it is in fact services and supports. We were told that we would have an opportunity to work on this through the co-design. Well, the co-design, everybody was there who was participating, and it was in the second co-design meeting where I asked the question about which tenant engagement model we were talking about. Because what was presented to us as a possible future state for tenant engagement is with the 8 bodies circling it. And what we found out from the co-design is that it is all only about the tenant engagement model, the little model. So there has been no conversation with tenants about this larger model and how all of this works together. And I was actually kind of surprised at that second meeting when I asked the question to find out that it was only for tenants. And if it's only for tenant to tenant, raises a question, why are agencies and support services involved in that? Now, there's another graph, and that goes to the one that we made up here at Saranac. And instead of it being a model where it is outside looking in, our model is from the inside. This is a tenant perspective. And we have a round table. And around that round table is the Saranac Community Inspiration. That is tenants. And then you can see from the others, there's Place to Live, Health, Partners, and Saranac Inspiration, giving an idea of the different things that go into making tenant engagement. But you'll also see that tenants play a very large part in this. Now, I just want to move quickly to the scheduling, because this is an issue. When you compare the two schedules, you see the one that has full of listing of all the agencies, the times, it has tenant space, it has the health resources. The other one is the one that housing uses, and it has only those things done by agency. So the problem is, so there's a quick problem here in that things are being designed and rooms are being used without full consideration of what's taking place in those rooms, and a total disregard for tenants and tenant use of that space. And this is something that's occurred in my building and other buildings. So there, 5 minutes is not enough time to speak to the complexities of some of the things that are happening as a result of this new model. And I would look forward to questions, and I'd look forward to speaking to people individually about some of the issues that are coming into place when the integrated service model is colliding with the housing's policies and perspective. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you very much, Bill. And as always, we do appreciate your perspective and your engagement. Before I ask staff to potentially respond, and I'm sure we'd be happy to follow up and meet with you to unpack some of the issues that you raised. Are there any questions from the committee for Bill? Okay. Seeing none.
I think Brenda has her hand up, Fareed.
Sorry, yeah, I can't see everyone.
Yeah,
Thanks,
no,
thanks, Linda. Go ahead, Brenda.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, good. Thanks. It was just a question. We, to Linda, to the chair of the committee. We haven't yet adopted a final tenant engagement system, have we? We're still at the debate stage, or are we at the point of providing different models and a discussion as to which one?
It's still in development.
And
I think that, Arlene could speak
Yeah.
to this. I mean, the work that is happening right now is actually engaging the tenants
Yes.
on this process. And it's good to actually have feedback from people like Bill and others. And it would be interesting to know how other tenants are actually also reacting to our planning as we go. And I don't know, Maureen or Arlene, if you have any comments about that.
Well, my reason I'm raising the question is just, when I think of tenant engagement, and my expectation is it's more than just booking spaces, right? And the whole issue was as well control of the booking of those spaces. So I'm hoping that we're not, and I don't know these consultants that we've hired to do this, but I'm hoping that we're going to come up with something other than just a model for how to book space.
Yeah, and it is definitely not just, I can
Right.
say with full certainty that is a process within that, Maureen.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Brenda. I mean,
There we are. Yeah, I just wanted to add that the
Okay, go ahead,
bookings
Maureen.
actually. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
The bookings actually seem to cover a couple of different areas. It's part tenant engagement, and it's part use of space policy. So they're kind of intertwined there. And through the workshops that were just held that had great participation, BMG is now putting all that together through Arlene and her hard work. And I think it was great. There was a lot of brainstorming, a lot of tenant input. And as Linda said, it's still in development, but I think the tenants' voices were heard. We'll see what BMG comes up with soon.
Thanks, Maureen. If there are no other questions.
I think Jill has her hand
Sorry,
up.
Jill, go ahead.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Maybe I could just refer Arlene as well to speak up and offer some comments as well, since she's guided the majority of the work.
Thanks, Jill. So thank you, Bill, for your comments, and thank you also for participating in all of our co-design sessions and always being able to speak with us one-on-one to have really good conversations. To answer the question as to whether or not the tenant engagement model for Toronto Seniors Housing is already completed, it is not. It's in production. BMG is more collating the information that we've been collecting since April. They've already collated that, and we put a draft proposal out to the folks that participated in the workshop for comment. And the model is certainly more than use of space. It really covers quite a breadth of issues for the organization, including health and wellness, and it is incumbent on us to ensure that the work that constitutes part of the tenant engagement is aligned to the integrated service model, because that is the backbone of the organization. The execution is what's going to probably make or break what we do moving forward, right? We've got getting the model is a step in the direction that we want to go, but actually executing, at the workshops, people identified quite a number of areas that they felt we needed to solidify and improve our work against. So it was including use of space, it was including policies, it was including processes, procedures, budgets, roles, responsibilities, code of conduct, working with agencies, and we, as Toronto Seniors Housing, we provide access to service. We don't provide service, which is why it's really important from a health and wellness perspective. Which is why it's really important that the agencies and service providers and partners are at the table for those conversations to hear what tenants are looking to get and need supports in. That's why they were included in the conversations. Bill referred to the original scope of work. And as we all know, a scope of work usually gives us an indication of where we want to go. But as we dig into the work, sometimes we need to do a little bit more exploration. We've heard from we've had 391 participants throughout the process, a variety of tenant leaders, tenant representatives, tenants at large, service providers, agencies, staff provide their input into what the future of tenant engagement will look like at Toronto Seniors Housing. And at this point, at noon today is actually the closing time for folks to provide their feedback on the draft proposal for the tenant engagement approach moving forward. That will be brought forward to QTE on November 22nd, and then to the board on December 8th for final approval. And then the work really begins in earnest to sort out how we actually execute against the ask that has been put forward to deliver a new model for Toronto Seniors Housing.
Thank you. Thank you, Arlene. Any other comments? Any questions? All righty. So once again, Bill, thank you for your valuable input. And as you can see, the model is still being developed, and we'll take your comments under consideration as we move forward. And as Arlene said, this is the easy part is the development of the model. The tougher part is the execution. So we look forward to the engagement of all of our tenants as we try to get the model approved and to also implement the model. Grant, I'll ask you to provide an update on the interim strategic directions and the progress we've made in Q2.
Fareed, sorry, it's Brenda here.
Go ahead, Brenda.
I had just one comment about the tenant survey that's being drafted. Is that under this committee, or is it someone else under someone other's committee? Linda, I see you nodding your head. Okay. I just had a quick comment about a little frustration, but I've been, as you know, ever since on this committee, I've been pushing for demographic analysis of our staff, of our tenants, and so I was pleased to see that the survey is being drafted, and most of it looked good, except it came down to the bottom end, which was the area of self-identification of ethnic, racial, cultural diversity. Now, the language used in what I saw was extremely dated, and I had hoped that whoever you hire, and God knows we always seem to be hiring people, consultants, whoever you hire would at least be up to date on the current method of categorizing. Okay, so I had a long talk. I forget the gentleman's name. He's a recent hire, but I want to mention this because it's like 2 years on, and here we are. I'm having to debate. Do your homework about the categorization, and there's lots of material in this, so there's no reason for it not to have been done properly. But for example, there was no question added about language. Well, we need to know the language that people speak in order to provide services. So I gave my comments. I don't know if they'll be incorporated or not, but I just want to highlight that when we start contracting out with consultants, as we seem to do, who's supervising the consultants, in terms of the work they're doing. And in particular, it was very dated categorization. It's like 20-year-old language. And I would hope and expect that we'd be a little more up to date on that and less offensive. Similarly, there was a question about disability that didn't even ask people what the nature of their disability was. So we don't know how many will be mobility impaired or hearing impaired. And those has implications for budgeting because we do some accommodation in our units, right? So once again, also not up to date on the language and the categorization. So I'm highlighting that. I don't know if who's responsible. Is it Brad or is it?
I'll ask Grant to respond, Brenda. Thanks for bringing that. So Grant, can you respond to Brenda's concerns?
Yes, thank you. So through the chair. So thanks, Brenda. So just to give the board a bit of background, this was an item that we've talked about at the Quality and Tenant Engagement Committee previously. And over the last few weeks, as we've been moving forward on developing the survey, we did engagement with a number of different people to have input into the draft of the survey. So the draft of the survey was brought forward, and there was a discussion about it with some tenants, including several staff members. We actually also worked in reviewing it with two of our board members, Brenda and Maureen. We also consulted with the RPath group around the accessibility and the language in the draft of the survey. We also referred to the City of Toronto's guidelines about how we actually collect this type of information and the categorization to ensure consistency with the city's approach. And we also listened to your feedback, Brenda, and actually worked on drafting some amendments to the draft that you saw, which was not the final version. It was our initial version of the survey, which tried to incorporate a move forward from the 2020 survey that was done previously when we were not part of TSHC. We've tried to incorporate all of these different aspects around the types, the way the questions are being asked, the way the information will inform and help guide around our measures and the key things we're trying to drive from an outcome perspective, and to ensure that the language and the way we actually do that will hopefully give us information that will be valuable. So I can give you an update that, for example, on the disabilities section, we have now articulated examples of different types of disabilities in alignment to a standard way to capture that and run that through our path group, which does the accessibility and supports us broadly. So to your point, we're taking this seriously, and our intent is to actually gather data that is in alignment to current practices as best as we can do that. And we're also working with the company that's supporting us, Forum, to give us some guidance on that too.
Well,
thanks. I'm going to ask, sorry, Brenda, before you speak, let me ask Jill to jump in here. Jill, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just, thanks, Fareed. I would just echo Grant's comments. There's been substantial work done by the Hushman. I think that was who's working in Grant's team on this to make sure that it's relevant and current in terms of the approach. And State Grant, I believe as well, that as we saw it for the work, particularly focused on the approach to this particular technology being very relevant. So that's
Thanks, Jill. Brenda?
This is not something you ask the tenants about. This is professionalism of the categorization. And you have, different bodies, and I'm not certain the reference points you're using, Grant, and I'm glad to hear it's just a draft, which I understood. But I was still distressed to think that we're using 20-year-old language in categorization, and these are people who should be up to date on these things. For example, the category Black said Black, Caribbean, African. Well, that's ridiculous. You could be, you won't suss out whether someone is a newcomer by their country of origin or their mother tongue. So, I'll be waiting to see what the final result is. I may not get a chance to see it, but please, garbage in, garbage out. If you don't ask the right questions, and I'm not questioning the work that the staff have been doing. This is specific to someone supervising the consulting firm to make sure that these errors don't occur. And even if there was some error on the race and cultural question, the disability one was even more laughable. A description of disability, are you disabled? Well, no one in the right mind would do that. You would designate mobility impaired, hearing impaired, and these are not identifying things. It's just simply to get a handle. I don't need to know the specifics, and we're not asking for diagnoses. But if you don't have the proper categorization, it means someone somewhere is not treating this issue of race and cultural and diversity and how you calculate that seriously.
Okay, thanks, Brenda. I mean, I think those comments are well placed, and Grant and others will take a look at those issues prior to finalizing the draft. I think it is important that we have the categories right, and they're contemporary and reflect the language that people can relate to and respect. We'll move on, and I'll ask Grant to present his Q2 progress report on the interim strategic directions.
Sorry, Fareed. Maureen had her hand up as well, I think, to comment on that last piece.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor.
I think it was Maureen. Yeah, thanks, Amber.
Oh, Maureen, sorry. Yeah, thanks, Councillor. I can't see everyone on my screen, so appreciate the help. Go ahead, Maureen.
Am I muted or unmuted?
You're unmuted.
Okay. I just wanted to say I agree with Brenda, and in particular around the disability section, because as it describes a disability as something that affects your ability to function in society. And it's something that we need to be aware of around language, because the concern here is that society is an ageist society, which would categorize all seniors as disabled and unable to function in society. So yes, it needs more of a breakdown on what those disabilities are. I mean, we are a senior specific corporation, so that's an area that needs some senior specific work, and I look forward to the final draft as well. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Maureen, and thanks, Brenda. And again, I mean, I think the comments are well placed and noted. I think we also need to be cognizant of the fact that we have to try and strike the right balance, to ask for the right information, to get the data that we need, and also ensure though that we're not impacting on individuals' privacy. But I'm sure staff will take these comments into consideration as we try to get the next draft. And Brenda, your comments about having consultants that reflect some of the things that we're concerned about, I think is well placed as well. So thank you. All right, I will bring this section of that item to an end, and I'll ask Grant to present his update on the strategic directions. Grant, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Fareed. So through the chair, I'll just provide a brief update on the report that's before you. Linda noted a few of these components as well in her update around the last Quality and Tenant Engagement Committee. And just to refresh the board, so our intent is to bring quarterly updates on the progress on the interim strategic directions, and in a format that's similar to what's before you today, and to take it through the Quality and Tenant Engagement Committee for a more detailed discussion as required in advance of bringing it here to board. So what you don't have before you at board today is the operational dashboard that used to come to board, but now will still go through Quality and Tenant Engagement Committee. What you have before you now is a more strategic, higher level dashboard for the whole organization. So I'll just give you a couple of brief highlights. I don't want to repeat what Linda already provided. So this is the Q Q2 update. There are two attachments to the report. The first one is the actual dashboard. So this is a 2-page document that is aligned into our strategic directions. So the 4 strategic objectives and 2 enablers, and it builds and has a subset of our overall key performance indicators. And if the board recalls, earlier this year, we went through a more detailed process to develop the KPIs, the key performance indicators. This is a subset of those. This is not meant to represent them all. This is the Q2 result. We are working on the Q3 result right now, and we will be bringing that forward to the Quality and Tenant Engagement Committee on November the 22nd upcoming. In terms of a couple of highlights that are just a bit beyond what Linda noted, there were encouraging trends across the operational key performance indicators in the areas of housing occupancy, unit turnover, and arrears or rent collection. There's information there around some accomplishments on pest management, and I know Linda referenced that a little bit, and also specifically around how we're helping to support tenants with that in preparation. The housing occupancy rate is it within target and actually exceeding target for the city. So that's actually a good thing, and I can advise that will continue in the Q3 result. With regards to, that's mostly on the strategic objective or the page 1 of the dashboard. On page 2, which covers objectives 2 to 4 and the enablers, there were highlights around some of the communication and engagement activities, the listening tour, which we know is now complete. Some of the work that Arlene actually referenced a few minutes ago for the tenant engagement model and consultation with a variety of tenants. Some of the work that was done earlier on the quality improvement projects. There's some interesting information in the dashboard around programs. So both tenant-led and service provider-led programming, as well as the types of programming. So to give you an indication of sort of how this is growing or expanding, there was a 22% increase in programming between Q1 and Q2, for example. There's also information in there around funds and distribution around the tenant action funds that were captured at that time, just under $18,000, and I believe it was around 46 initiatives or 46 applications that were processed. There was on the area around excellent employer, there was a reference to the Confronting Anti-Black Racism training that's been done within TSHC, one town hall and some staff bulletins that were completed. I won't go into the financial result because it's later in today's agenda, but there was a high-level summary of that. This dashboard is available on the TSHC website as well, so it's publicly available to anybody to review. I know the format is something that was discussed at previous meetings and trying to ensure that it's easily readable, especially with our population. So that is something that, through the electronic version, you can zoom in and sort of look at things. We are looking to enhance the overall design for the future to continue to work on that. And there was some feedback about ensuring maybe we could look at some different commentary and in particular around employee of choice for future versions. So I just wanted to sort of highlight the dashboard itself, and then very quickly on attachment 2, this is the roadmap of activities. So these are the specific actions or initiatives that are aligned into the interim strategic directions. We had 11 initiatives scheduled for completion in Q2. All 11 of those were completed. A couple of highlights included a pest management data analytic tool, the listening tours that I already mentioned, the annual report and annual general meeting, the definition of the key performance indicators. That work was done in that quarter as well. Establishing a process to monitor our quality improvement projects was also developed, and a review of the TSHC compensation strategy. So I just wanted to highlight those particular aspects, give the board a summary view of what's in the dashboard, and I'll take any questions.
Thank you very much, Grant. Are there any questions? And it's just a great report, and it's good to see all the progress being made on these various indicators. And I particularly like the mechanisms that are tracking these things as well, because I think that's perhaps the more important component of the directions, our ability to be able to ascertain where we are from time to time. So I'm going to open it up for questions.
I see Maureen's hand up, Reed. And
Okay, I have Maureen, and then I have Councillor Crisanti.
Yeah.
Okay, Maureen, go ahead.
Thank you, Linda. Thanks, Fareed. Question to Grant. Regarding the process for monitoring and implementing the existing QIPs, will we be able to see numbers on that for the next QTech meeting or the next board meeting?
So through the chair, yes. So we have developed basically a tool to capture updates across the quality improvement projects and all the recommendations of the quality improvement projects. And there were many, over 100 recommendations in those 3 projects. We're aligned into the interim strategic directions and the appropriate initiative. In some cases, they are grouped and already aligned with things in the interim strategic direction. So yes, we've developed a process or a tool, and we'll be bringing an update forward to the next Quality and Tenant Engagement Committee with that.
Thanks.
Along with an update on the overall interim strategic directions. The idea is to try to manage and integrate these updates because we want to have the interim strategic directions as kind of our overarching reference point.
And that's great, but I'd still like to see the results from the recommendations, what the movement is on the recommendations as a separate item to follow.
Just through the chair, we haven't designed the actual way it'll be presented to committee and board yet. So we're capturing the information right now. I envision it'll be a separate attachment to a cover report that will highlight the QIP specifically.
Okay, thanks, Grant.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks, Grant. Councillor Crisanti, go ahead.
Thank you, Fareed. So, Grant, I'm just wondering how the partnership with Baycrest and North Toronto Health Team is what the status of that. Maybe you could give us a bit of an update. Is it working out? Is it moving forward in the way we're expecting it to move forward to provide the access to seniors so we can make sure they age in place?
Thank you. So through the chair, Councillor Crisanti, I think I'll ask Arlene to respond to that. Her team is overseeing that particular aspect.
Oh, sure. Thank you.
Thank you. So the partnership is moving ahead. We are actually looking to expand into other buildings with Baycrest. They are a really terrific partner in terms of reporting and giving us opportunities based on the data that they are finding from their interactions with tenants. They're working with the North Toronto Health Team. They're looking at expanding, I believe, into three more buildings and providing additional services. They're also working very collaboratively with the services that are being provided through UHN as well. So not specifically in just their programs, but we're looking to create with other partners a table for better sharing of information and better communications about what is available across the city so that we can better have scope and spread of services. So they have been working on helping us to get some vaccine clinics in place, doing some education programs, bringing in diabetes clinics, things like that, right into the buildings to provide supports to tenants.
And how many buildings are we currently in now?
Currently in 4. We're looking to expand to a couple more, and we're continuing to look at how we do that over the next few months.
Excellent.
And sorry, if I could just also add that in doing that work, there is consistent tenant engagement with the providers to talk about what they want and how those services can be provided.
Perfect. Thank you, Arlene.
You're welcome.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. Thanks, Arlene. Any other questions?
It's Brenda here.
Okay, go ahead, Brenda.
Following from that point, Arlene, is there a plan to do a similar partnership in the other regional offices? So for example, Baycrest is in the Northwest quadrant, but what are we doing in terms of having a lead health? I mean, I'm viewing this like as a lead health agency, connection with the hospital-based or community-based system, right? So are we attempting the same model or similar model in the other 3 regions?
Through the chair, thank you, Brenda, for the question. And it's as though you're reading all the things that I'm trying to get done. We are working diligently to pull together a table with our partners to be able to have, I think you're calling lead agencies, anchor agencies, who have connections into the health and social service systems to help us to provide more supports across the city. So working with partners who are already involved with us, like UHN, like Michael Guerin, like Unity, working with those agencies that have connections into the Ontario Health teams, who have connections into Ontario Health and Home and Community Support Services.
Right.
All
Right.
of those, we're bringing those folks together to try and figure out how do we bridge some of these gaps across the city and try to provide consistent services, including looking at issues like discharge from hospital to home or from home to hospital, to ensure that there's some consistent practices, because as we know, each hospital might have very specific practices in that area. But we're looking to bring this table together to look at how do we make that a bit more seamless, working with paramedics and working with the hospital staff and working with our staff.
Okay, so that will be assigned to what staff for further development?
Oh, you're looking at her.
Oh, it's you. Oh my goodness.
It's
Okay.
part of the work that the programs and partnership team is accountable for doing, and I'm
okay. I understand.
taking the lead on trying to get some of that stuff set up.
And thank you very much. And one other last question, I guess, to Grant regarding the 3 priorities we've been working on. Pest management. Oh, help me with the other 2.
Through the chair, Brenda, there were safety and security, pest management, and staff and tenant relations.
Okay, thank you. We're moving on most of those things. Is there an intention to establish 3 new priorities in addition to the 3 we've been working on? I mean, at what point do we say this is fairly mature development and we can move on to the next round of issues that need identifying and addressing?
Yeah, so through the chair, I think this is a discussion that would make sense to have at the Quality and Tenant Engagement Committee.
Okay.
At this point, with regards to the work that was already involved in the 100 recommendations that are in the 3 QIPs that we've got on the go now, plus the new tenant engagement model and some policy work, I think it would be important for a conversation at QTE about when does it make sense to take on the next quality improvement initiative. So I would suggest we maybe have it there. We did envision that there would be an opportunity to repeat the process and look at other areas of improvement. I think we might want to reflect upon when it makes sense to actually embark on that next journey, as really we're still on the sort of the implementation coming off of the first 3. So, but I think it's a good point.
I've got Linda.
Yeah, I just wanted to put a punctuation on that. I think it's not like speed isn't going to get us there. I think it's actually making sure that that these new that we actually see the execution and we see the results. And I think that if the board can look at the amount of tenant engagement that's happening, that I don't want to detract from some of the work that's underway, because we sometimes have a habit of jumping from one thing to the next. So if you can let us bring that back to QTE and think about.
That's fine. Yeah. No, I just wanted.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
No, I understand.
Okay.
I just felt
all right.
things
So
were kind of developed.
We'll move on to item number 9. I think we've canvassed that issue in a comprehensive way. Sorry, Councillor Morley, you wanted to go ahead.
I keep seeing Maureen on my screen with her hand up, so I wanted to flag her for you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Morley. Thanks, Fareed. I just want to go back to the KPI trackers here. The box on community safety. Now, last night I had to get my my magnifying glass out, but I'm not complaining. I really like the layout of the page. But it lists in this community safety box a lot of the things that are covered here. And it made me think of a conversation that we have had, and I don't know if we've had any opportunity to move forward with it. The darker, higher graph lines are the more serious community safety issues, whereas the smaller gray lines are more mediation and in conflict resolution and behavioral. I'm wondering if we've moved forward in our discussion at all around staff training in mediation and conflict resolution. Because when I look at these graphs, if those areas were pursued in more depth, the more serious lines would be a lot shorter and the light gray lines would be a lot higher. It would be more in-house resolution. So yeah, it just sort of raised that question around the training. Thanks.
Thank you.
So through the chair, and I'm not sure if I have a complete answer here. I'm aware of some activity happening to help support the staff on mediation supports. And I know potentially Brad Brad has his hand up. There we go. I just noticed. So I think I'll let Brad answer that one because I know there is some effort on that front.
Thanks, Brad.
Yeah, through the chair. We've entered into a partnership with Humber College with regards to having 2 of their conflict mediation students conducting co-op terms with us. And those students are working on staff and tenant resources with regards to avoiding conflict and dealing with conflict in a vertical environment. That'll focus on staff training sessions that we're working on developing, but also modules that we can take out to buildings where we find conflict to be an issue.
And how far along is that work? Are they with us now, these 2 Humber students?
They actually are. The first 2 students are coming up to the end of their term. They're presenting their work to date to me next week. And then we'll have 2 new students that will come into the program and pick up on where they leave off.
Will their presentation be in a report form?
It will.
Can we see it?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Follow up to that, Brad, are we building in staff training components? Because after the students leave, you know, and there'll be a rotating group.
Yeah. Through the chair, we're working on, they're developing training modules that we can upload into our Talent Connect software and then assign out to staff to complete.
Online.
Yes.
Okay, I would, if I may suggest, HR, where are we, Carol? Staff training that's a little more hands-on because it is a real skill set. I mean, we have the de-escalation courses, which is one version of it. And they're not bad in themselves. And that might be one route we can approach. And that's already done. We don't have to create a new wheel. But in terms of some of your tenant service reps, these seniors, coordinator people, you know, some hands-on training might be helpful.
I will work with Brad and we'll see, you know, what best way to deliver the training, taking into consideration your points.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. That was a good discussion. I'll now invite Councillor Crisanti to present on item number 9, which is the Corporate Governance and HR Committee report. There's also a substantive item on that agenda, which is the property renaming of 3036 Bathurst Street. Councillor Crisanti.
Thank you, Fareed, and again, good morning, everyone. So at the September meeting, one of the first things we did is we welcomed the interim CEO Jill, and also the new board member, Maureen. And again, Maureen, welcome to our board. So then what we did is we discussed while Grant provided an update on the request to rename Bathurst Place to the Mike Feldman Place that was put forward by my colleague, Councillor Michael Cole, and the TSHC staff consulted with the city on the city's commemorative renaming process and have been following that city's process. The governance committee approved the renaming process in September, and this item will be discussed shortly and considered by this board today, and we're going to hear from Grant a little bit later on this. Councillor Cole's office has worked diligently to take the necessary steps in moving this forward through steps such as holding the tenants consultative meeting and have attached supporting materials that we can discuss today as well. I just want to add that though I did not know former Councillor Mike Feldman, he was a former councillor in the former North York and also a Toronto deputy mayor. I do know through a number of colleagues that have told me that he was a very well respected individual, not only on council, but in his own community. So we're going to hear from Grant on that just in a few minutes. I just want to add that additionally at that meeting, Carol, the Director of People and Culture, provided an update on the Confronting Anti-Black Racism training and informed us that about 213 staff have taken the training so far, and there was discussion on ensuring that all board members have an opportunity to take this training at that meeting as well. Carol also mentioned that the EDI survey in consultation with staff will occur in November 2023 and provided brief updates on the compensation and performance management program with Toronto Senior Housing Corporation. So it's a couple of more things I could say, but I think I'll be repetitive. I know that Grant will now give us a further report on the renaming of Bathurst Street. So that's it, Mr. Chair. That's my update.
Thanks, Councillor Crisanti. And before I invite Brad, I have to say also that I know Councillor Feldman well. I was the deputy city manager when he was a councillor. He's quite a gentleman and very engaging and very respectful. So I look forward to the report being presented by Grant, and look forward to the board engagement on this particular issue. Grant, the floor is yours.
Oh, excuse me, just one question for Reid.
Go ahead, Brenda.
To add to Councillor Crisanti's report, I had also asked that there be an accounting of because I feel very strongly board members should take the course. If we're expecting staff to take it, I think we should too. And I'd asked for an accounting of the number of board members who had taken the course. So if we can get that information at some other point, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Noted. Go ahead, Grant.
Thank you, Fareed. And through the chair, that is an action item going back to the next corporate governance and HR committee, taken from the last one. So through the chair, thank you for an opportunity to speak to the board with regards to the property renaming request for 3036 Bathurst Street, currently named Bathurst Place, and a proposal to rename it Mike Feldman Place. Just a bit of context. So in the staff report, we provide some history with regards to how this particular request was brought forward to Toronto Seniors Housing. Initially, the request was made in 2021 by Councillor Cole to Toronto Community Housing at the time. And at that particular time, the commemorative naming process didn't exist in an approved format at the city. So it was not dealt with initially because there was an understanding that the commemorative naming process and supporting policy work was underway at the city. Subsequently, the city did approve a process last year. And at that time, the item was resurfaced at TSHC and then ultimately referred, because this is now a TSHC property in terms of managing the day-to-day interaction with tenants, for us to consider. And we had that referred to us in March of this year. Once we got that particular item referred to us, we started to work more in detail with the city to understand, how do we follow and ensure that we are in alignment with the city's process on renaming properties. So we engaged with the Strategic Partnerships Office at the city on that. They worked with us so that we could understand what the application process looked like and what the steps required looked like. And in attachment 1 to the staff report in front of you today is a view of that process and the 4 steps that are required to complete that particular process. Because of the nature of this particular application having been initially requested back in 2021, and we discussed this a little bit when the item came forward to Corporate Governance Committee a few weeks ago, we felt it would be prudent for TSHC to look to see if we could move forward concurrently on the actual request to rename Bathurst Place at the same time as looking at the process itself. And we followed the process as is in attachment 1. This did include working with Councillor Cole's office to ensure that the application that was provided was fulfilling the information requirements of the city's guidelines on this, which it does. And we also work with Councillor Cole's office to look for any other community input on that. That included a meeting with the tenants in August that Councillor Cole did come out and meet with tenants in the building. We did ask tenants to sign that they were okay with the proposal or supported it. And we did get that for the 11 tenants that did show up there. With regards to, and we also, and Councillor Cole's office was able to provide some additional information around letters of support to endorse this particular consideration. So before you is a combination of the package that went out to tenants in attachment 2, and then Councillor Cole's more detailed application and some of the letters of support. We've actually received from his office some additional letters of support after this package was finalized for the board today. The proposal, just to be very clear, is to rename Bathurst Place Mike Feldman Place. And the information that is provided primarily in the attachment sort of outlines some of the history and reasoning behind why this particular request was brought. Some of it noted already in this meeting in terms of the role that former councillor and deputy mayor Feldman played in the city of Toronto and also in the housing space and as an advocate. And so we believe that the requirements of the property naming process as defined by the city and as outlined in attachment 1 have been adhered to. And we're comfortable that the level of detail and work behind that process to bring forward a recommendation to the board has also been fulfilled. So with that, we'd like to request, and we'll, I'll take any questions, and then if we're supportive, we can move forward to the resolutions that are in the report.
Okay, thanks, Grant. Are there any questions from councillor, from directors?
Me again.
Maureen, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I did not know Michael Feldman. The reports are glowing. I have no doubt that they're all true. But putting his name aside for a second and looking at the process, in blunt terms, these supporting documents are absolutely wonderful, but the process, the piece in due diligence is also to look for dirt. Because when you rename something, you don't want it to come back and bite you afterwards. We've had 11 tenants say that they're quite happy with this, which I don't need to really say that that's not much of a representation. I was looking up Mike Feldman, and the Responsible Government group came up from 2009, where some of the councillors formed a group opposing the CUPE's and Mayor Miller's agreements or arrangements to try and resolve the strike that had gone on for a month. CUPE is part of our community. I'm wondering if anyone has asked them what they think about renaming this building. And is that something that is required in due diligence? The other part that came up, and I appreciate, Grant, that this has gone on for over 2 years now, but I don't want the bum's rush falling on us because it hasn't been with us for 2 years. And as you mentioned at the CGHR meeting, even the City of Toronto's guidelines are somewhat vague. They're not really clear cut. But what falls under due diligence? Yes, Mike Coley has done his due diligence, but have we? The other thing is, we are the property managers of our buildings, but TSHC owns the buildings. So how is it that the cost is falling to us? We, A, did not ask to rename the building, and B, don't own the buildings. So those are some of my concerns.
Good point.
Thanks, Maureen.
So through the
Go.
chair, I'll attempt to answer the areas that you just raised, Maureen. So in terms of the due diligence, the city's process does put the due diligence to a large degree on the applicant to help complete this and provide and do the research behind this and present that to us. And that's the work that was done together with Councillor Cole's office. And subsequent to that, and we did have a discussion at CGHRC, we did some of our own research as well to help understand from our perspective the information that was being provided to us in the application form and whether there were any concerns that it might raise. And we did some of our own research as well, although maybe not as in-depth as the applicant and Councillor Cole's office in this case, but we did research at the library and look at other opportunities to try to understand if there are any red flags around this application that might surface. That's one aspect. So I can let the committee know, or the board know, sorry, that we did look to have some supplementary research done on this particular request. No significant red flags were raised. If any had been raised, we would not be recommending this to the board today. Second, with regards to engaging CUPE or other potential stakeholders in this, we do not have a specific requirement to engage CUPE on this. It's more about community. So we focus more of the engagement around the aspect of the tenants in this particular case. So we have not consulted with any of the unions with regard to this potential name change, just for reference. Oh goodness, what was the third thing here? Oh, the cost. So with regards to the cost, so the operational day-to-day maintenance or the type of things that we're talking about here are items that TSHC would have the ability to manage on behalf of our relationship with Toronto Community Housing. And although the original request was to TCHC at the time and now has been referred to us, essentially, I think we're prepared to support the costs associated with this, but also the councillor's office has indicated that maybe there are opportunities to fundraise or to support the costs. The costs are noted in the report, somewhere between $9,000 and $15,000, and we're prepared to look to support that.
Thanks, Grant. Are there any other questions?
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's just an aside. At some point, would it be possible to have a listing of all of the other buildings that it's not a rush that have names? Did I miss that somewhere? I was just curious if this is actually something that regularly happens and just being prepared for the future as well.
So through the chair, Linda, so every building has a name, and so there's an address and a corresponding name for each building. And this particular building is named Pathurst Place right now. And then what we would be essentially doing, likely with regard to those costs, is replacing the signage at the building. And there are signs in different places in that building, and also probably some sort of a small plaque for the interior of the building.
Yeah, sorry, Grant. I was meaning more that buildings that are named after people. So maybe, like,
sure.
yeah. So, but it's just an aside. It was, as I was going through it, I thought, it may be interesting to sort of have that information, because it's not a big deal though right now.
We can take that as an action and provide a list to identify that. Thank you. Sorry, I misunderstood that, Linda.
Thanks, Grant. And I acknowledge the issue around the cost, but I think staff has done the due diligence on this one. They've followed the process. This has been long, outstanding. While it hasn't been with us, it's been in the system for so long. So if there are no other questions, I'm going to put this to a resolution. Okay, hearing none. And I have I'm going to ask for a mover and a seconder. Be it resolved that the Board of Directors approve the draft property naming process for TSHC buildings as outlined in attachment A of the report. And secondly, to approve the proposed name change for 3036 Bathurst Street, Bathurst Place to Mike Feldman Place. May I have a mover, please?
Mr. Chair, I'm happy to move it.
I'm happy.
Thank you, Councillor.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Councillor. So moved by Councillor Crisanti, seconded by Councillor Morley, I think. All in favor? Any against? Any abstention? That is approved. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, staff, for that report. We'll move on to item number 10, the Audit, Finance, and Risk Committee report. I see Councilor Crisanti, your name is against this, but I think this is probably Lawrence, isn't it?
Yes,
Okay.
Go ahead, Lawrence.
I think Lawrence might do a little better with this one.
Let me try.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Audit, Finance, and Risk Committee met on 28th September, and it reviewed the financial statement for the 6-month period ending 30th June 2023. The committee was also presented with a reconciliation statement for the above period prepared by TSHC. Further, status of the next year's 2024 budget development was also presented. For a change, I would like to walk you through the statement of operation included in your board package, page number 54. Is it possible to display it on the screen, please?
I'll display it in a second. Hold on.
Yeah. Okay, as you can see, this is for the first 6 months of the year, half year ending 30th June 2023. The bottom line shows a surplus, that is excess of revenue or expenses of 151,793 against a budgeted deficit of 5,668,523. That's a positive difference of 5,820,046. Now, there are two key factors that contributes to this surplus. The first one, your first line item, which you can see, is the City of Toronto grant. Now, this is a portion of the unused grant from the previous year. Last year end, we had 3.118 million deferred grant from the city. Out of it, 2.372941 million has been recognized so far this year. So that's one of the factors which leads to that positive one. The second one is the revenue from TSHC. Now, we have received and we have booked $18,453,975 against a budgeted $15,633,297. That's an increase of 18.6%. That's the 2,910,678 we have received in excess than the budgeted amount. Why has TSHC paid us more than what we are entitled to? Now, I did talk to Vince, and I'm told TSHC has been paying us based on the previous year's estimate or budget. Then why we are accounting this extra amount that we are not entitled to? I'm told TSHC, because TSHC is recording this in their books, we too need to account it as revenue in our books, so it helps consolidation. And this will be adjusted in October accounts by both the corporations, and our October financial statements that will be presented in our next board meeting in December will reflect the actuals. Now, there is a concern here. Right now, we are reviewing in October the financial statements as of June. Now, we have to wait till the year end, either November or December, to know the true picture of our finances. Information that will be closer to reality. Now, this is not a desirable situation, and it might lead to a situation, where we may be presented somewhere in November or December, at the fag end of the year, some results which we are not prepared to. Now, the transition agreement signed by both corporations require quarterly reconciliation and adjustment of our book, both corporations. But here it happens only in October. I'm given to understand that there are some challenges to do this quarterly adjustment in books. Probably not from our side, but the other corporation side. I'll be visiting Vince at his office next month to understand this process, the systems and what challenges they are facing, and also to find any solution, workaround, so that the board and the management receives quarterly information in time, and that's nearer to the reality. Now, as you may be knowing, both the corporations and the city is governed by public sector accounting standards that require accrual accounting and not the cash basis accounting. Let me come back to the statement of operations. Now, I tried to arrive at approximately what could be the real position of June 30th if we go by the accrual accounting. There are two ways we can calculate that. First, we minus that extra amount advanced by TSHC. Our bottom line would be a deficit of 2.758 million as of 30th June. There's another way we can do. Now, TSHC has provided a reconciliation statement for the first 6 months. Now, this has not been incorporated in both the company's books. It shows an actual revenue of 16.196 million against what they have paid us. They have paid us 18.543 million, whereas they say actual it should be 16.196 million. Again, coming to the the shared services share of ours, there again, our actual share, the reconciliation statement says it's 4.935 million against what we have accounted, 4.756 million. If we incorporate these both changes, and if these numbers are holding good, our actual bottom line as of June should be around 2.375 million based on accrual accounting and not on the cash basis that our financial statement shows. I would also like to remind our members that our annual budgeted deficit at the end of December is around 11.712 million.
How do we get there?
So I expect, now as of June, midpoint, halfway through, we are seeing a positive, and we are saying we are positive, and suddenly in December, next board meeting, we'll see a number which has got a few millions of deficit, and at the actual year end, it could be around 8 million. So just wanted to flag this. Moving forward to the expenses side, there are salaries and benefits, legal and professional services, insurance, and other miscellaneous costs. These 4 items are under our control. There's the last item, shared services are with the TSHC. There are some variances there, the first 4 items, some positive, some negative. Vince has provided explanation in the written report. Hopefully you have read it. And if you have got any questions on the statement of operation, I would be happy to take. But I would also like to flag the year-end deficit of 11.712. Half of it is due to $5 million which TSHC is charging us towards administration fee. The big question mark against it. It appears to be an arbitrary round sum. What exactly is this administration fee? I'm not sure. Anyway, any questions I'm ready to take. And
thanks, Lawrence. And I mean, I'll entertain questions on the numbers themselves. On process, I think we need a further conversation on process. This is the first I'm hearing of this process, and as you know, we do have ultimate control over it. There's got to be a conversation with the TSHC as well. So the numbers and the speculation is good, and I think it's helpful for the board to understand that. But I mean, I think we need an offline discussion on how we deal with the process issues to be able to get more timely information before the board. So if you have questions on the numbers themselves, Brenda, go ahead.
Yes, could you just display that statement again? Sorry, Monique. Okay. I did notice some of these things, Lawrence, thank you. What I'm not clear about is you mentioned the projected deficit of 11 million. And obviously, based on what I see in front of me, I'm trying to figure out how do we get to 11 million deficit in December. So is there particular areas that there'll be variances that would lead to that 11 million deficit?
You know, if you remember when the consolidated budget was presented to us
Yes.
for 2022, it showed an amount of 8.531 million.
I remember that.
That didn't include, I believe, COVID-related expenses. So I'd asked for some fresh numbers from WINS, and a couple of days back I received it. It shows an amount of 11.712. As I said, I will be meeting with WINS at his office in the second week of November, and I would like to understand. He has provided a reconciliation item on that. So I'll be trying to understand, and maybe in the next our audit and finance committee, I would be able to hear more, and both Vince and I would be able to answer those questions. But you know, it's 11 point. I mean, I can, or maybe in the next audit committee, in the
all right, that's
session,
fine.
I can.
I think
That's
I think
fine.
Lawrence,
That's fine.
Sorry, Brenda, just 1 second. I think also it's a bit premature to throw these numbers out without the board having had a chance or the benefit of understanding where they're coming from. So I would ask Lawrence, have your meeting with Vince and staff, and then we can have a more fulsome conversation at the audit committee and then at the board. Brenda, go ahead.
And my last thing was the shared services agreement. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought we were are we negotiating that, or is that the fixed 23%?
I mean, it's a various. There are, you know, not everything is 23.5%. Some of them are actual, and as again, the Vince says, this truing up or adjustment happens only in October,
Okay.
which is not as per the transition agreement, nor as per the public sector accounting standards. So it has to be looked into. Anyway, I will be having a conversation with him on that.
Okay.
And as I said, you know, that's I believe that 5 million is under discussion, or it's being.
I think it is. Can someone help me with that? Is it being debated?
Vince, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, through the chair, if I may add, with respect to the $5 million, this was an amount that has been sort of negotiated or provided to us at the end of last year, and that was the amount that was agreed upon in terms of the amount moving forward as a way. Again, we had extensive conversations with TSHC at the time at the end of 2022 when we were going through the process while Tom was in the CEO position and Jag was on the other side. I know that we were quite adamantly try to push that aside, and unfortunately it was an item that remains on there. We continue to talk to them for the 2024 budget to ensure that in some capacity this amount would be either alleviated or perhaps removed. TSHC did mention that in terms of some of the expenses as arising from that admin process and costs, it amounted about something around close to $9 million in terms of costs. We have yet to see that. We've asked them a number of times to provide some sort of backup and support. We have not seen that at this point, but it is an item that we are continuing to have this conversation with TSHC. So essentially, you know, we will provide you with the updated information once we get updated in terms of where the follow-up consolidated information will be. I just wanted to add a few things earlier, and so this process here with, you know, the reconciliation process with TSHC, this is sort of essentially the second year that we're operating this process. So it is something that we're doing very similar to what we've done in the past. The numbers will be adjusted accordingly, and I do agree with the chair there, Lawrence, that some numbers could have been done more correctly earlier. We've been trying to get these conversations going with TSHC, but due to their staffing issue, due to the number of other components, we have to recognize the same thing as what they have advanced. I know there are some numbers that you're seeing that are slightly different in a sense, the 18 versus the $16 million, that is a tax implications as well. And I just want to make sure that, like, at the end of the day, is we do communicate, we do go back and forth and ensuring that these numbers are lined up appropriately. And so,
Vince, sorry, Vince. I just want to be careful here. I mean, I think we got to be cognizant of the fact that I don't want to be throwing numbers out without some kind of validation process.
Yes.
So I would strongly recommend that we have the discussion with the chair and with the relevant staff, and then come back to the board with a more validated set of numbers, that we can have this conversation. I'm also cognizant of the fact that we have this item will also perhaps be discussed again in the closed session of the board meeting. So that's my advice on putting these numbers out, that I think might be a bit premature. Lawrence, go ahead.
I just basically want to say we should not take last year, the previous 1.5 years as the standard, because 5 months essentially, I mean, we were in existence only for legally 7 months last year. So that was an abnormal year. So whatever processes or systems, because I believe the previous finance lead, because of their whatever reasons, because technically I think that most of the accounting was done on Excel sheets. Right now, probably this year, it's fully, both the corporations are using the same platform, accounting platform.
Yeah, again, folks, I mean, let's, if there are any other questions on the numbers, we'll deal with it, but on process and format, I think we should have that conversation with staff and come back to the board for a more fulsome conversation after the audit committee had a chance to look at the updated numbers. All right, I don't see any other hands, so I'm going to move to the second item on that agenda, which is the issue around the insurance renewal. Grant, do you want to provide a quick summary of that before we move ahead with the resolution?
So through the chair, Fareed, and maybe I'll introduce it. Vince is on for that particular item, but we'll just let the board know that the insurance renewal is before the board for the amount that is in the report. There were some confidential attachments that Vince had circulated to the board members to provide more information on that. This is a sort of a standard requirement because of the threshold for approvals that the board would approve this. And you know, I'll turn over to Vince for maybe any further details on this particular item.
Yeah, just before Vince takes the floor, I just want to remind members that we had quite a bit of discussion on this item, and we did direct staff to look at ways of cost reduction. And the Housing Services Corporation is a provider of insurance for these sort of things. So that context, I think, is important, because we did visit this a number of times before as a committee and as a board. Go ahead, Vince, or as a committee and as a board. Go ahead, Vince.
Thank you, and through the chair, Monique, if you could put that motion on the screen. There are two motions being raised relating to this insurance. One is to approve the costs relating to the annual premium of $696,000, and then also authorizing the Chief Executive Officer to take all actions necessary to execute all the necessary documents to ensure that the insurance are being implemented for the 2023-2024 fiscal season, beginning with November 1st renewal up to October 31st, 2024.
Yeah, thanks, Vince, and thanks for all the information you provided as part of the agenda. Are there any questions on the motion? Okay, seeing none, can I? Sorry, Councillor Morley, you had a question, or are you moving?
Going to move the resolution.
Great, thank you very much. So moved by Councillor Morley, Deputy Mayor Morley. May I have a seconder?
Seconded by Linda.
Thank you, Linda. All in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Okay, I'm just going to check in with Monique. Do we have both aspects of the motion approved, or do you need a second motion on the authorizing the CEO to take action necessary to implement the recommendations? Are we good with both motions?
Monique.
I can. All right, just to be safe, I'm going to ask for the second portion of the motion, which is authorize the CEO or designate to take all actions and execute all necessary documents on behalf of the TSHC to implement the above recommendations. May I have a mover? Councillor Morley, a seconder.
Brenda.
Thanks, Brenda. All in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. So that ends the public section of our agenda. I'm just going to ask for a motion, be it resolved that the board close part of the meeting to the public and give consideration to a report containing personal matters about an identifiable individual. May I have a motion to that effect? Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Morley. Seconder.
Jim.
Thanks, Jim. All in favor? Any opposed? That is approved. So we'll wait for a few seconds to go in camera.